Hey everyone, another one of Sleepy Reader's bat-focused videos. There will be spoilers on Batman 44. After I talk about Batman 44, I will show you my stack of mostly Legends of the Dark Knight that I've been picking up lately. Um, so if you want to skip there, if you don't want me to spoil, you can probably see when I start holding up comics like this. You can scroll forward to that. Also, I'm kind of a bastard, so you might not want to listen to me piss on this issue. Not that I really piss on it, but people in the 24 hours that it's been out, people have been exclaiming their love for this issue on Twitter, elsewhere, rave reviews everywhere that I've seen so far. Um, I had an argument even with a friendly argument, totally friendly argument with Matt Wednesday Serial in the Google chat that we often chat in. He loved this issue, as far as I understood. So the funny thing is, when I read it, I assumed that everyone would be like, "What? This is a total waste of space," and Scott Snyder and company are not giving us, are wasting our money and wasting our time. Because that was my initial thought. And given how much everyone loves it, I feel like maybe I should rethink the way I think of it. But for the people who are curious and want to hear all the things, or some of the things, because I'm only going to give you whatever pops into my head right now, some of the things that made me think this was not a good issue, listen to this. Otherwise, just scroll ahead to when I start showing the fun stuff. Um, the Jock art is great in most places, with this incredibly toned down coloring that I thought was really interesting. Um, I have to say, if I really wanted to analyze the coloring, it could have used some changes in tone here and there. But anyway, I did kind of like. It was almost like reading a Batman black and white, but not quite. There's some color there, and it captures an emotional tone. Actually, I really like these pages here, where it's just a little bit of yellow in with the gray. Um, and so, you know, while I initially or still perceive this as mostly filler and not really much of a story, um, I can see why people find it a moving issue. It's takes a look at the hard life of the person on the street in the bad neighborhood, who is African American, I believe. It addresses the issue of the fact that cops are much quicker, at least in some parts of the country, to shoot an unarmed African American or perhaps other minorities than they would other people. Um, my take on that is always because they can get away with it. And our society continues to let them. Um, but that's an aside. He doesn't really address it that way. He recognizes it as a bad thing and that the cops are bad. It's a sort of another twist on the whole thing of the dirty cops in Gotham, and why Batman needs to clean up Gotham. So that's good stuff, but to me it wasn't embedded in a good story or in good storytelling or in a satisfying way. To me, much of this comic read as um, a sort of, the whole show don't tell. It's kind of a story that is told, and it's told in captions, and it's illustrated by pictures rather than um, really enacted in pictures. The pictures, I guess, try to make it more exciting, and they do. But it's the underlying story that I focused on. So as I hold it up, it looks really cool. But to me, it felt like, um, oh, to me, it felt like rather than Batman being a detective, and finding the clues and putting together story. He was pretty much just like a reporter who was going from one person to another, who was telling their story to him. And when you piece it all together, you get the sad story of this guy's life. And that's the story. To me, there's no Batman story here. There's no real detective work. And the story basically is this kid's life sucked. He was trying to stand up to the gangs. Things didn't work out very well for him, so he turned to, lots of spoilers here, to Mr. Bloom and got some kind of superpower and then died. We're not even shown his death or exactly what happened. I guess we're just left to, I guess he grew bat wings and then they came off and he fell and died. But he also has been shot by a cop. I don't even know if he was shot before or after he took Mr. Bloom's, is it Mr. Bloom or Dr. Bloom? Took Bloom's serum. So yeah, I feel like the interesting things about this guy's story are not enacted very well. And there's not really a Batman story here. They try to make it a Batman story by, this is where Batman learns to be a kinder, gentler, softer guy who goes out and talks with the kids in the hood. And that also struck me as a little off. I don't want Batman to be learning to be a saint somehow, a goody two shoes. Maybe he goes out in his weird way, in a disguise, and listens to what the young people are saying and stuff. But just going out as the hero in his cape and cowl and talking with the young people, that didn't work for me. Tying this into, I thought we were going to get like a real backstory on Mr. Bloom. So part of perhaps my disappointment on this is the high price and what I thought I was going to get. I thought I was really going to get some background on Mr. Bloom, and we did not get that. He appears in a panel or two. So basically our knowledge about Bloom is that we now know he has been around 5 or 6 years. Because, right, isn't like 0 year 6 years before, or maybe at this point 7 or 8 years before the current continuity? I don't know how many years have gone by since the New 52 rebooted at 5 years after Batman started his career. Or maybe I have the career of Batman wrong and he's different than the rest of the New 52. Anyway, I've always been tripping up over that kind of continuity. That's not really my major problem. But anyway, it's just how long has Bloom been around? Maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's longer. But it doesn't give us much there. And you could argue, which Matt did with me, it gives us some growth in Batman. It kind of links us to the Batman who might want to pick up a young teenage street person as a sidekick to try and help them out and have them help fight crime rather than leaving them on their own like this kid. So that is a really good theme too. But to me, the story was just told like filler. It was like, we have these ideas, but we don't really have a story. Let's add this patina with a lot of text where people don't show what happened to sort of fill in the gaps. But even there, they didn't, in my mind, take the time to figure out the best ways to enact all this stuff. Just the typical Batman sort of tortures different people or scares different people into telling him the story. And then they tell him a very long, verbose story, as if they all talk like Scott Snyder or something, as if they all love to tell long stories. Jock's art I loved, coloring I loved, so there's that. I don't see why this had to be a 30-page story. It did, someone sort of, I think maybe Matt again referred to it as being like an annual, and yes it is, and maybe I would have accepted this more as an annual at the oversized and a little bit of a filler feel. Anyway, so that's where I am. I sometimes feel, this continues the negative side for me of Snyder, that sometimes he just has a little thing he wants to put out there, and he just sort of throws a lot of verbiage around, hoping that his idea will stick. But I don't think there was much of an idea here, and that there wasn't a story. So hopefully, if you loved Batman, you weren't listening to me talk about. If you love Batman and the current Batman, you weren't listening to me put it down. But let me show you some of the comics I picked up at 2 or 3 different places in the past week and a half. Mostly 75-cent bins that I've talked about before, and some stuff from a sale, a Labor Day sale. The Labor Day sale stuff, I think, might have been marked at like $3 an issue, possibly $4 an issue. So then I got them, they were half off, so I got them for $1.50 or $2. So when I saw these in the bargain bins, I couldn't resist. I just love these Kelly Jones covers. And it is 2 of the, so I got 3 of them. Just covers I really love. And this one does not have Kelly Jones art inside. These 2 do. They are 116, 117, and then I skipped up to 520. And I was just grabbing covers I liked. But I'm very happy to get quite a bit of Kelly Jones art on the inside. It strikes me that he could have been better served by a different inker. I mean, the inker, John Beatty or someone Beatty, John Beatty, kind of brings Kelly Jones back into a little closer to mainstream comic book art. And the other thing is, like I've seen some Kelly Jones relatively recently, like on a Thoth-Amon comic he did, the Conan villain Thoth-Amon. He did a miniseries for Dark Horse there, and it just looked incredible with modern coloring. This actually looks really good anyway. So yeah, and then it's interesting with issue 520, the price goes up to $1.95 from $1.75, and we get slick paper. It's not Kelly Jones art, but it's slick paper, not with modern coloring yet, but a little closer. So, and I think that Kelly Jones continued on this past this issue, so this might have been a fill-in issue. And I may look for more of the Kelly Jones issues. I was mostly thinking I wanted to get the hardback collecting Kelly Jones Batman. But I might, if I can grab issues cheap, I probably will grab some more. Something very pleasurable. So then, as you know, the main thing I've been trying to collect right now, Batman-wise, is Legends of the Dark Knight. And I got a whole bunch. I need to get more, so I don't have number 1, but I have number 2. This is kind of this Denny O'Neil series, the first story that started off Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, has kind of a bad reputation, and it was not originally the Denny O'Neil story they planned to run first. I think they planned to run Venom first, but something got delayed in the art. So I've got issues to fill in here. So I've got 2 and 4 and 5, which finishes out the Shaman arc. If you're not familiar, the great thing about Legends of the Dark Knight is every arc is a totally standalone, out of continuity story. So if you find the complete issues of a story, and they're always numbered, like here is Klaus Jansson's Gothic part 1 of 5. They are not connected to the previous issues. It was like a graphic novel every 5 months of Batman, back in the days when graphic novels were not a common thing. So you didn't know that they would be collected later. So it was a very exciting thing to me, and I do want to have all of these in the individual issues. So that's part 2 of Gothic, which was number 7. Love this cover, which is obviously an homage to a famous, what is it, like Batman 27 or Batman 30 or Detective Comics 30, I don't know. Famous Detective Comics cover. It's been homaged a number of times. Probably a better homage was by Neil Adams, but this is still cool. Klaus Janson, like that cover, so that's number 8. think I've got all of the Gothic. Number 5. Gothic is kind of a ringer. I already owned it. I must have bought it a few years ago, or re-bought it, of course, because I read it originally. Number 5, that's kind of a cool cover too. And then we have the one that I remember with the most love. So we'll see when I reread it if I agree. It's Prey by Doug Monch and Paul Gulacy. And I've been at times a huge Paul Gulacy fan, and seeing him do Batman was really quite thrilling to me at the time. Had an intensity that not that many artists seem to have back in the late 80s or early 90s. There's no sense in any of these that all the crazy Todd McFarlane art styles were going on. This is all of the stuff in the Batman the Dark Knight is more classic, if you will. So yeah, I think I have all of Prey, which focuses around Dr. Hugo Strange, which I think wasn't he Batman's first villain? So there's kind of a harking back to the golden age there. Oh, here's an awesome cover. This stuff reminds me a bit of these covers remind me of certain Will Eisner splash pages. With, like when the spirit faces off against the octopus. So there's that. And then in a previous haul, I'd gotten Faith number 3. So now I found part 1. I don't know if I think I read this before. I seem to remember the Bart Sears art. So I've got number 1 and number 2 of 3, and then I already have 3. So yeah, like if you could just pick up these 3 issues, you got yourself a standalone Batman story with nothing else you need to know. And last time I'd gotten part 1 of Flyer with art by Gil Kane. I think the story might be by Gil Kane too, with assists from Howard Chaykin, or maybe the story's by Howard Chaykin. So yeah, there's a $2.95 one, so I got that half price. If I waited, I probably could find all of these for 50 or 75 cents, but I was happy to get it for this and just fill out the run. So that's the third part of Flyer. And then we skip up to issue 44 with something called Turf. I think this might, one of 2. So I'm going to need to find 2. That's kind of a cool cover too. I like that. And then Doug Monch and Russ Heath. I wonder if Russ Heath did this cover. They did a series called Heat, and I think I'm missing the second issue of this. Looks a lot like the Paul Gulacy. So I don't know maybe if Gulacy did the covers or if that's Russ Heath doing the covers too. But these are great covers. I have to look into that. It's funny that these say things from another planet on them. I don't think I got them there. So yeah, I've got 1, 3, and 4. And then finally is a 1992 annual with a painted cover by an artist. So it's written by Danny O'Neill by an artist I've never heard of, Netzer and McDonald. There's a lot of Danny O'Neill in this Dark Knight series, and I think at the time, other than Frank Miller, DC was considering Danny O'Neill their grand master of Batman stories. And obviously he has his famous run. Oh, that's pretty cool art on the inside, so different than the cover. He has his famous run with Neil Adams. I'm not sure. I don't remember any of the Dark Knight series that I did read, any of his standing out as my favorites, although Venom is near the top, and that's by Danny O'Neill. So anyway, yeah, that's I feel like, well, even though I've gotten a lot, I have not, I think, broken the high numbers here yet. I think I'll try for the first 100, but I think there were like 212 of these Legends of the Dark Knight before it ended. What the later when I've looked at covers of the later ones, it looked like maybe they tied in more to the regular Bat universe. So I have to look into that more if I want those. I want the ones that are their own short stories that stand alone. Anyway, thanks for indulging me in my Bat mood, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.